to all. So we are on Saturday now. It is 8:30, just 8:30. So like I said last time, I'm like a Swiss clock, set like a Swiss clock, so ready to start just on time. So I'm just alone for now, but I'll wait until some others start joining, and then we'll start chatting. And tonight will be on how to get started with the dissertation. So hi to my three guests for tonight. So hi Rachel. Then I do not know who else is connected. So Monique. Hi Monique. Nice to see you. G'day. Not morning, so it's about 2:30 p.m. for you. So good afternoon. 𝗥𝗲𝗄𝗍. And so another visitor is here, another guest. So hi, welcome back if you are used to attending, and welcome if it is your first time. So I hope you had a good week. I hope you had a good week. On my side, the week has been good. Hi Sarah, nice to see you. And there are another two guests, another two visitors. So welcome tonight. If it is your first time, welcome back. If it is not your first time. So how was your week to all? Hi Fouad. Thank you very much for making it again and again, for being a regular viewer and participant. So thank you very much. Very warming. So one more has just joined. So before we start, how's your week been? Any news on your side? Do not know if you want to chat, to type what your mood is for today, or how your week has been or not. So if you're typing, I can start, and then I'll get back to what your mood is, and what you want to share. So on my side, the week has been very good. So very good on a number of accounts. So as you may know, as I've mentioned it a few times already, I've spent the last 10 months training myself on AI, and so generative AI. So I'm not developing code or whatever. Hi Mirella, good to see you tonight. Welcome back. So I've been diving into AI. I learned versus the literature gap, reassessing your theoretical framework versus the literature gap. I'll get back to this soon for Peter. Sure. So for the past 10 months, I've been training myself to AI intensively. So intensively means that for nearly, not 10 months, but perhaps 8, and you will see why 8 and not 10. For 8 months, I've been learning a lot, nearly full time with ChatGPT and Claude. I learned not just prompting, and we'll discuss this at some point if you're interested, but I developed skills in prompt engineering, but also something called cognitive architecture, which is this ability to monitor and to drive artificial intelligence and drive AI, complex AI systems. So I've also worked on understanding what can actually be done with AI, because we might hear that it will revolutionize everything, that X millions of jobs will be destroyed by AI, that X millions new jobs will appear, etc. So we hear a lot of things. Some are scary, some are big promises. I wanted to see what can actually be done. And then, if you remember, when I launched this channel, in August, I think it was it was around the 20th or 25th of August when I launched this channel. It was really because I was convinced that a number of students in the midst of summer are sort of supervisor orphans, and it is the worst time for them, as they need feedback on their thesis, which they must submit by the beginning of their next academic year, so in September or something, and their supervisors are away. So initially, if you remember, I launched this channel with this in mind. I was willing, and I'm still, I was willing to help students, to be there as sort of a duty. Hi, bloggerskole. G'day. So I wanted to be like those pharmacists or doctors who are on duty when others are not, at night, on weekends, etc. So I wanted to do something like this. But I spoke of AI just before, and I've not lost track of this. But when I launched this channel, it was at the same time as I developed an AI-powered tool enabling students to self-assess their dissertation. So students fill in a form, just as you do with anything online, So you upload your dissertation, and 2 or 3 minutes later you receive in an email detailed feedback like something a reviewer would send you. So I need now just to try something to see if I can share my screen with you, so you can see how it looks. Just need to find something, and I'm just trying. So I spent a bit of time figuring out how it works. So please let me know if you see my screen. Yes, I think you see my emails. So you submit a form, an online form, and then after 2 minutes, 3 at the most, you receive a detailed review, so giving you feedback on your dissertation as a reviewer would do. So here I think this feedback is about 1,500 words, 1,500 words roughly. And then there is an overall assessment, so telling you about the defendability and big areas of possible discussion, and sort of an indicative grade. I'm saying indicative because, of course, the grade will be dependent on your school, and different schools may have slightly different weighings of different parts. But according to common standards, usual standards here, this dissertation is worth about 11 out of 20. And my tool also estimates similarity score as Turnitin or 𝗙𝗀𝗃 would do. And lastly, also identifies a potential or a suspicion of AI usage in the thesis. So I did this in the summer, so I'm stopping this screen share for a sec, and I'll try probably to get back and forth to it. So I did it in the middle of summer, and I was quite quite proud of it. And if you remember what happened at that time, the tool was working very well for dissertations, but had two big limitations. The first limitation was that I could only accept, technically speaking, docx files. No PDFs were allowed. And I had a number of people who had PDF files and would not understand why nothing happens. And the second limitation was word limit. And if you, I can't remember if I told you, but at that time, when it's still the case now, but when you submitted a dissertation which was above 25,000 words, then it could not be processed by the system. Actually, there is a strong limitation when you use AI, which is tokens. So you might have heard of tokens without, hi Jonas, nice to see you tonight. Good, thank you very much. I'm very happy to see you. I was saying the unit with AI to measure the data you consume is called a token. A token, in a nutshell, is more or less a word, or it could be a combinations of characters more or less similar to a word, but in some cases a word can be split into two or more tokens. I do not know how they exactly do, but it is more or less, I would say, 1.5 token is equivalent to a word. So I had this big limitation, and I realized I had this limitation when a colleague of mine submitted a couple of theses and received nothing. I mean, there was an acknowledgement that the dissertation was received, but he did not receive any evaluation, any assessment. And when I browsed my tool, I saw a number of errors. I did not understand. How come there are errors? Because everything is working fine. And then I saw that there was a token per minute limit, which was 30,000, so roughly 25,000 words. So my tool could not work for lengthier dissertations and could not work for non-docx dissertations. So, and this is where I'm getting to for how I'm feeling today and how I've been this week. Since then, for a good month, I've been working on an improved version of this tool, and the improved version was aimed at doing an extra two things. So processing, as I said, processing non-docx files, so docx or PDF files on one hand, but also processing lengthier dissertations, which means that I had to, just in a nutshell, without entering into technical details, but I had to be able to split the thesis and send the thesis in batches to my tool, or in my tool it was split in batches, but I had to organize it in such a way that the batches are consistent, internally consistent, so that when the thesis is assessed, it is assessed twice, so that there's an overlap in assessments. So it's assessing batches that are consistent with themselves, but also consistent with each other. And at the end of the day, there's a full assessment. And the idea was to smooth the batches over a minute, so that the system never receives more than 30,000 tokens per minute. To be honest with you, when I started with this, I really thought that it would be that it would be easy. I really thought it would be just a minor thing to improve or to amend on the initial tool. And actually, no, not at all. Not at all. It has been not a nightmare because I learned a lot, but it has been a load of hopes, disappointments, frustrations, errors, bugs. It was, just too very, very hard. And I'm really happy because sometime this week, I think it was on Tuesday. Yes, on Tuesday night. On Tuesday night, I finished this revised version of my tool, and it works. The thing I showed you on my screen, the email I showed you, is a piece of evidence that it's working now. So the dissertation I submitted and on which I received those comments was a PDF file about 40,000 words, so that it passed through the 2 constraints. Plus something else I managed to do, which was not a problem with the first tool, but suddenly became one with this one, was that now when you submit, you choose the language, French or English, and then the assessment is done in the same language as the dissertation. And with this tool, before I arrived at this version for which I showed you the outcome, I had a problem with language which was not automatically detected. This means that at times my tool decided that the assessment would be in English, at times it decided that it would be in French, at times it decided to shift language in the middle of a report. It was very frustrating. So I managed to fix it. I'm very proud of myself because I could see that there were errors in the code. Now I've sort of learned to read coding. But I would say, so some of you may know that last year I started learning Arabic. I can learn a bit of Arabic. Writing is something much more difficult. Here with coding, it's the same. I can read. I do not necessarily understand everything, but in places there are signs I do not recognize or things that do not make very much sense. I could not correct it myself though. So I found some errors. I had them fixed. So I'm glad. But also I started discussing with a number of not just colleagues, but a number of deans or vice deans in France and I will not say overseas because it's not international yet, but deans in France and vice deans also in Switzerland, and people are interested. I see that there is a genuine interest in this tool because so I'll tell you the because afterwards, but there is a genuine interest in the tool, not just polite. People are not saying, oh, it's interesting. No, it's a bit more than this. They say, oh, yes. And they ask questions. They want to know more. And a number are happy to partake in the testing phase, which can start very soon. So I'm glad, really. And also, I'm glad because I still have this token per minute limit, like I said before, and this limit is still unchanged, still 30,000. I've managed to bypass it, but for now my tool can assess only one dissertation at a time. And my idea is that I would like to be able to process multiple requests. If universities subscribe to this tool, I'm bound to receive hundreds of dissertations at the same time. But for now, technically impossible. And I found that it should be possible relatively soon. Again, I'm not giving too much of technical detail, but something interesting is that I need to consume tokens, and the more tokens you consume, the more tokens you are allowed. So it is clearly a big incentive to consume tokens. So let's be honest. So I must first consume 50 euros tokens, and once I have consumed 50 euros of tokens, I will unlock a much higher limit, which will be 2 million tokens per minute. 2 million tokens per minute means that I can assess nearly 100 dissertations at a time. So I'm not far from doing this large-scale testing phase. So this is something that makes me happy for today, not just today, for the week. And the sole thing is that it will be. What is frustrating is that paradoxically, a token does not cost much. So whatever I do to consume tokens, I'm struggling to spend enough money until I arrive at 50 euros. So it's not much. But precisely when you know that a token is worth something like a fraction of a cent, 50 euros means that you need to consume really, really a lot. So, but I'll get there. I'm really, really glad. And at the same time, I have derived from this tool another one, which also starts raising some interest. It is similar principle, but assessing internship reports. In France, in nearly every single school, for higher education, students have to do an internship, so a training period somewhere. The duration might vary from 1 month to 6 months maximum, and they have to write a report where they speak of their experience, what they learned, etc. And this report is, to be honest, usually very boring. When you have to read it, when you have to mark it, it's really, really boring. It is always the same things. They're descriptive, this company, blah, blah, blah. And some are also, or even explaining to you how the coffee machine is working. So more or less, just to say how far it goes, how deep it is. But what is often missing is this reflexive part. What I learned, what the next step is for me, what the promise was, etc. And I've designed this tool that assesses it, which means that tutors or professors would no longer need to read those things they usually find boring and uselessly time-consuming, which does not mean that there would not be an assessment by a human with an oral defense, which already exists in many instances. And this tool indeed raises interest. It raises interest because it raises fewer ethical questions than the tool aimed at assessing the dissertation. The dissertation is sort of a totem in academia. It is the threshold to research. This is a piece of work which is supposedly the soul on which the student decides from cover to cover on what they want to do and how they want to do it. So out delegating this to a non-human is potentially problematic at some point, or raises those questions. So what use can we make of it? Is it just formative? Will it be for the mark? Will it be for mediating or arbitrating in case of divergent reviews or protests or whatsoever? So many questions are raised, which is not the case for those internship reports. No real questions as to whether it is ethically problematic or not. So I'm glad. I'm really, really glad. And I will continue next week. I will continue talking to other deans so as to really get started with this. So this is where I'm at for now, and this is how my week has been. And as you can see, I'm happy, and I'm also, of course, happy to see you all here tonight. Yeah, I really hope it will be a game changer, and I think it can really change things. And when interestingly, so a game changer, yeah, you're. I hope so, Monique. And actually, when I speak of this with deans or vice deans, I've seen 3 reactions. I do not need to tell the merits of my tool, just explain how it works, what the principle is, and I had 3 types of reactions. One is, this will save me a lot of money. So this is the first reaction I had. Indeed, when you know that a dissertation usually costs about €200, or let's say $200 something to assess. Imagine a school with 1,000 students submitting a dissertation. You see that it costs each year about €200,000, $220,000 or something. And my tool will be much cheaper. So I'm not telling you the price I'm considering at the moment, but it will be a fraction, really. So big savings. First thing they see. Second thing they see is equal treatment of students, as they're all assessed in the same way. There is no gap between 2 different markers or graders. The criteria are applied exactly in the same way to each student, so there is a lower risk of protest and of litigation. So this is the second thing. And the third thing they see is an improvement in admin efficiency, as grades would all arrive at the same time. There will be no delay, there will be no missing grades, no tutor being late at submitting their grades, which would block the whole machine. So they see those 3 merits, and I do agree on the 3 merits. So I really hope that things will be more than just an interest. So this is where I'm at for now, for this week. There is a bit more, of course, but I'll tell you more next time as I have more stuff to share. Now I'm getting back to your point of 𝗏𝗏𝗃 on reassessing your theoretical framework versus the literature gap. Do you want to expand a wee bit more, or not? And for anyone else who's been here for some time tonight, so if you want to discuss anything, if you want to share anything, please go for it. I'm more than happy to engage in a conversation with you. So the chat is there for that purpose, and it's always pleasant when it's a conversation more than just a lecture or a webinar. So okay, I'll continue, and if you type anything in the chat, then I'll get back to it. I keep an eye on it. Okay, you're trying to consider how to write a more persuasive literature gap section. Okay, so I think I know your work. So actually, the thing is that and here what I'm saying is valid for everybody, not just for you. The purpose of the literature review is often misunderstood. The purpose of the literature review is not to tell everything that has been written on a topic. Many students think that a literature review is like an encyclopedia, which it is not. Many students think that it is just the place where you define concepts, you give definitions. It is a good start, but it's not enough. So the literature review actually is here to position your work vis-a-vis prior research. That is, the literature review is here to highlight what is known to date, what is known, what needs knowing, what still needs knowing on the topic, but also on what researchers agree or disagree, what the mainstreams of thought are and how they position themselves vis-a-vis each other, and at the end of the day, what justifies your thesis. So what is missing, or either what is missing in knowledge and needs further consideration, or what is such a subject of disagreement between researchers that you need to make your own opinion. And this is what you really need to highlight. This is the gap. And at the same time as you highlight a gap, you highlight or you make it clear with whom you want to engage in a conversation. So what is the persuasive literature gap section in the thesis is that section where you show either what is missing, what is left as a blind spot of research, something that has not really been addressed or neglected. So prior research has done a lot, but sort of neglected this particular thing, or there's been extant research on the matter, but not very conclusive. Many debates amongst researchers, so not very conclusive. And here is why my own research matters. So persuasive means indeed that you manage to highlight the gap. And something important is that when you highlight the gap must be aligned with current research, with recent research, with recent debates. If you highlight a gap which was worth 50 years ago but has been filled since then no, it is no longer a gap. So in your case, I know the thesis on the section in particular, I think it is really a matter of reconnecting your other three sections where you did something very good, where you systematically addressed knowledge, discussions, and areas for current research, which you did not call gaps per se, but areas for current research. So this was something you did very well. And then what I usually suggest doing, and I think I probably showed you at some point, is something with three circles and hang on, let me try to find it, and then I can share my screen. Sorry, as I had not necessarily planned on this in particular. I do not have the slide just ready, which is not a problem. So I do not know if you're trying to apologize, but you do not need to. I'm just trying to retrieve. Yes, I've got it. Here we are. Okay, so here I will share my screen with you, just in a tip here. So here you should be able to see my screen, and assuming you are, so I'm just doing this. Oh, sorry, just to control and make sure that you see it. You can see it. So here, I derived this figure from my own PhD thesis. So what you've done is that you have identified what is known, what needs knowing on each of the 3 circles in your own thesis, and you have tried to cross them 2 by 2, and this section on the theoretical gap is the intersection of the 3. So here you need to really show what happens in research when the 3 intersect. Is there anything? Is there anything convincing? If there is anything convincing, is there any agreement or disagreement on this, or whatever? Or if you're not too sure, then what you can do is going back to the intersection of 2 by 2, and then try to identify what they have in common, and try to identify the smallest common denominator, which could be here this blue triangle, which would be this gap you wish to identify. So this gap here would be the least common denominator would be probably the three summits of this triangle, probably 3 concepts or notions, and the gap will be their connection within the blue colored triangle. And I know that when I'm saying this, it might sound abstract. I would fully agree if you said, you're right, it's a good idea, but it's abstract. You would be absolutely right. But I cannot say much better just now. I think that's something you might really need considering to identify or reveal such a gap in the literature. So, Peter, does this answer your question, or does this respond to your concern, or am I at odds with it? So I do not know if you're typing. Okay, it helps. Okay, great. So just to be very clear, persuasive means substantiated, evidenced, and really supported with literature material. That's what it means actually, and that's why with your co-supervisor we have been insisting a lot on the importance of being clear with the literature, of being up to date with references, so you have no problems with the theoretical gap. So this is why we have been doing this for a time which you think might have been too long. And if you think it has taken too long, I would say it is always the case when you are a student and going through it. But you can be proud of yourself. So here 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃 is, as you understand, is a current and nearly ex-DBA student of mine. He submitted his thesis this week for review, so it's now being sent to two reviewers, people I know very well, I trust, and who will give a good review within 4 to 6 weeks. And based on those reviews, then we'll see how to proceed. And here I can see that it's not a total surprise, but I can see, and I'm really happy about this, that there are a few past DBA students of mine, and that there is a current one. I also know that that Saturday is not an easy day for streaming, and I'll get back to it at a later stage. You understand that it needs attention, as it is a fundamental aspect of the thesis. Absolutely. In the thesis, the literature review is much more important than what we would think in the first place, because the literature review is the chapter where you really position your own work, and where you eventually justify the interest, the relevance, and the possible contribution of your own work. If the literature review is unclear, I would not say incomplete, but incomplete not in the meaning of not comprehensive, but unfinished. I would say unfinished, or if there are some grey areas or undefined notions or whatever, then the rest of the thesis can be great, but will be impaired by this unclear positioning at the onset. And indeed, for that reason, it is really fundamental. I do not know if any of those I have known for years and who have joined would like to share their experience with this literature review matter or concern, things that could help either 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃, who is currently finishing, or things that could help Mirella, who started about a year ago. So I do not know if you like to share your own experience and thoughts. Please do. I'm sure it will be helpful for 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃 and Mirella. But if you're too shy, or if you do not feel comfortable typing, I can understand. Although I would prefer you to get into it a bit. Okay, so I'll continue, and in case anyone finds the courage to share their thoughts, I'll continue, but I am more than welcome to do so. So here we're speaking of the end of the thesis, but before the end there is the beginning. And again, I will have a few things to say regarding the beginning of the thesis, but of course, if anyone here would like to share their own experience, how you felt when you got started, or what tips you can share, I'm more than happy to let you do it, of course. So I'll keep an eye on the chat as I'm sharing some tips and hints from my experience. So when you get started, so I spoke abundantly of the topic of the research question, so I will not get back into it spontaneously unless you really want me to do so. But let's assume that the topic is clear, that the research question is clear as well, that it is workable. Okay, so where to from now, and how shall I proceed? For this there are different ways of doing, of course. What I always do with my students, and I do not know if it is the right thing to do or not, but what I always do is that I try to identify with them the 2 or the 3 circles that will be central to the thesis. So on my slideshow, on the slide I showed you when I shared my screen, you could see those 3 circles, and I'm showing you again. So I hope I still have them open. Oh gosh, no, I accidentally closed the file, but it's not a problem. I'm showing you again. So it's fresh in your mind, in your memory. So here, sorry, just taking more time than I thought, but here we are. So here you should be able to see my screen, and yes, and this slide again. So oops. Oh gosh. I'm not sure if you can see the same as... No, you can't see the same as me. Oh, okay. When I showed you early on, you could not see the 3 circles for some reason. Okay, for some reason you see a fraction of my screen. Oh, sorry about this. I hope you can see more now. Of course not. It would be too easy. Oh gosh, sorry. Sorry. But what I do, and if I move this... Yeah, and I can't. Right. Okay, I thought you would see, but you can't. This means I will have to really work on the settings for this software I'm using. Slide means deployed, 1 of 3. Yeah, no, that's true. But what I think I realized that you could probably see just the top of the screen, and the figure with the 3 circles and the blue triangle was at the bottom, and for some reason the slide on my screen is split. You see half of it, so it's split horizontally. I have no idea how come. I figured it out today where to find screen sharing. And I promise that for next time I will have fixed the image definition. So where I wanted to get to was that in the first place we need to be clear with the 2 or 3 areas intersecting in your thesis. So I'm not getting back to the discussions we had, or to what I said in the past, unless you want to, of course. So that's the first thing to do. Be clear with, so we must be clear with the 2 or 3 areas that intersect. And when we're clear with them, it means that we must be clear with them in a relatively abstract way, and I would say universal. I would not say general, because general is too much too easily associated with generic, but in a relatively universal way, so abstract universal, so that we could think of our own topic, but also having in mind different situations or someone else's concerns, not just ours. Then you identify those 2 or 3 areas. It might take a bit of time, and here a question can be yes, but how do I identify those? And this is where I would say it's perhaps a bit tricky, or I would be sort of a Jesuit if I said, well, you just have to be clever. You just have to use your brains to really start, which I know is a bit frustrating as a response, as you might expect a magic recipe, but I do not have a magic recipe for this. Now I can take on this. I receive a text message saying no, don't. I can take the example of someone here tonight and who started some time ago. So I mentioned her name, so she will probably recognize herself. So she's working at the moment. So she's been working for a year on how female co-directors, and we'll get back to this. This was the very beginning. How female co-directors construct their power, and at the beginning, so the topic has, or the research question has slightly evolved over time, but at the very beginning it was how female co-leaders or co-directors in family-owned businesses construct their power. So here we had 3 major themes. We had 3 or 4. We had 3 or 4 things, and this is what made the point difficult. I'm starting with the easiest. Power construction. How they construct their power. Okay, power construction. We understood. We can have a look at some point into political science and political philosophy. So this was the thing that was the clearest. Then we had family business, but here family business is so broad that it would need fine-tuning. Here, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, unless you send a text message saying don't, I will speak a bit about your own work. So 𝗏𝗏𝗏's thesis is on corporate governance disclosure in family businesses in countries with an opaque financial system. So here again, family businesses, but family business, it is so saying, I'm dealing with family businesses as a direction for readings is exactly as if you were saying, I'm dealing with listed companies, or I'm dealing with charities, NGOs. It is very broad. So it is something that needs fine-tuning. And I'll get back to this, of course. And the third area of interest in the thesis, the one on female co-leaders, co-directors, is on a notion which is quite rare in research, in management studies. It is that of co-leadership or co-management, co-directorship. Here, what is it about? Outward research, irrespective of research in the first place. Here, the thesis is addressing couples, so directors, couples. When you have a family business, it is not unusual that husband and wife work together and lead the business together. And here, the question is, okay, in this venture, what is the woman's role, and how does the woman the woman constructs her role and her position and a form of power. How does she construct this? Not just exert, because once you've constructed it, you can exert it, but how can the female co-leader, co-director in a couple have full legitimacy, full responsibility, and be granted full responsibility for her work? So this was what is really new to, or really unusual to research. So here, females and co-leaders are both, of course, strongly associated. You cannot discuss co-leaders without considering the couple. I would say there's an exception. You do not necessarily need a woman and a man if you have a gay couple, but the problem is exactly the same. There is, let's say, leader A, leader B, and how does leader A or does leader B construct their own power? Yeah, indeed, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, interesting topic, several applications. So if you want to share some of your thoughts, please do as I'm talking, and then we'll get back to those. So here, something that occurred was that the literature on co-directorship is scarce, and this literature tends to address let's say the couple from two perspectives. One is the marital couple and the work couple, and how both intersect. But what we found that even this notion of co-directors and co-leaders was a bit vague in research. Vague as there has not been enough research coining the concept, so we do not really have a very clear notion. We have an intuition of what it can mean and encompass, but not enough, theoretically speaking, not enough to really substantiate a concept. So progressively, it was very interesting. Progressively, what we found was that it was probably important seeing how women construct their power wherever, be it in business, or preferably in business, say family organizations, but also in other contexts where the partner or the husband had a role to play. So here the thesis has slightly evolved, or the research question has slightly evolved to address how and I know that what I'm saying is not exactly where you're at now, but I'm sort of extrapolating as of today. And we spoke today, by the way, we spoke of the thesis today, so, which may also explain how come it is so fresh in my mind, but we spoke today. So now the thesis is more clearly going this direction, where a student is trying to see how women construct their power in a male's world or in a male environment. And Mirella, sorry, I did not want to say the name. And she has started with browsing a at some point the literature, done some exploratory or pilot interviews. For a start with female co-leaders in SMEs, so small businesses. Those interviews were not totally satisfactory, not very rich in content, and sort of repetitive. So progressively, she decided to also meet with women who had empowered other women and who had done their best to enable females to have such power positions. And this started with MPs, so members of the parliament, of the French parliament, a few Senate members who were the authors or bearers of some very important laws on females on boards, etc. So it started from there. Then progressively met with other MPs or former ministers who had long been involved in the defense of females' rights. Not just females' rights in general, but females' rights to exert power, so to be empowered. And also met with some former important female political leaders who are now retired, but who, let's say, have their political career behind them, and who can take some hindsight vis-a-vis their political career and discuss what they did and how they managed to emerge and to exert power in this male environment, and what role some males may have played for her or against her. And likewise, nearly accidentally, she met with the chairwoman of the French Reformed Church, so the first woman heading a church denomination in France in 500 years, and here it was a spiritual power, and but still an important thing where some males played a role, and her husband, who is a minister as well, played a role in supporting her in taking care of their young family, etc. So the thesis is slightly shifted, but the original intent is still there. So how to get started? Because this is the question I suggested. You wonder how the women minimum quota system in some parliaments might help empower women parliamentaries. Okay, so here, this is a big discussion. And the question itself raises a political debate with people really disagreeing. But what I can tell is the terms of the debates. The terms of the debates are as such. The observation is that the representation of women in the parliament or on power position is not mirroring their weight in society. So if you just take demographics, there is 52% of women in the world, and the rest is 48% is males. So the observation is that there is a majority of women in the world, and they are a tiny minority in power positions. There is something, let's say, really weird. There is something, I would say, unexpected, without giving any judgment, right? Without being judgmental right now. There is something which is a bit of a surprise. So if it were, the other way around, if there were a minority like 48%, although they have 52% in society, in the world, I think people would not bother. But here, it is a big surprise. And then you can wonder, how come? How come there are so few women? And this is where it starts being political. And I know that your question is on the quota, but we need to start from the diagnosis. And for the diagnosis, then you have let's say two types of arguments. One type of argument is that our society is patriarchal, and that there has long, not always, but long been a masculine domination, so that women have been kept in subaltern positions, and it has been sort of a caste made by males over centuries. There are exceptions, of course, and this is something also showed in the thesis, and an exception you probably all know is the Amazons. The Amazons were were women who were deported by the Greeks on a ship. They were sent to an island, and they rebelled against the crew, took control over the ship, then, if I remember, enslaved the crew when they reached their island, and then became the master of this island, and became a matriarchal society. So they needed some men to reproduce the species, but it was clearly women's power, girls' power, we would say today. So this is an exception, a known exception, interesting or important to have in mind. So it has either existed or it has been a myth, but at least it is something of which we have heard. So the first argument, like I said, in the debate is, or the first position is, yes, masculine domination. And because there is this masculine domination, or a balance is necessary. So why would males dominate the world? On what grounds? And this is the core of this position. On the other hand, you've got people saying that well, maybe women don't want to take those roles, or can't for whatever reason. And when you say for whatever reason, generally it means there's a suspicion that they're not skilled enough, or there's a suspicion that they have other commitments that take most of the time. And when you've got those two arguments that are clearly incompatible, so some saying, it's male's fault, and some others saying, it's women's fault, then of course there is no real possible discussion. And a solution suggested mainly in the first place by the proponents of the idea that there is a male domination is, okay, if we want things to change, we have to impose a minimum number of women. It would not be ideal at all, but it can be a start. And very interestingly, in the thesis, my student, I'm trying not to repeat the name, my student is hoping to find alternative ways to women's power, alternatives to quotas, because quotas are also creating a different type of problem with either some women who are there but might not be perceived as legitimate as they would. They're here not because they are good, but because they had to take this, or someone had to leave their position for them. This is one possible perception, which is not really helping women's cause, but also there is a big concern with the right. So here I think for boards it's 20% or 25% of women. So why this number and why not 50% or 50, or if we wanted to be fair, 52%. So here is the problem. So how does this empower women parliamentaries? That's the core of the political discussion, really. And some would say, some could say that it is better than nothing. It is a start. It is imperfect, and we need to think beyond this. So we cannot stick to this forever, so to quotas, to minimum, because you do not change a culture with just with regulations, with impositions. It is really a cultural matter, and the question is, what can we do to change culture so that at some point it becomes spontaneous that women, so men and women, are equally represented at the parliament. And this takes me to one situation which was 25 years ago, in 2000, in Finland. Presidential election in Finland, 4 candidates, 4 women. So the president was the elected president was a woman. Just to say that there are countries where women's rights, where women's role in society and the parliament, in directorial positions, is no longer a question, where it really happens. And those countries are very well known. So Nordic countries, Scandinavian countries, and also at some point, which might be a bit of a surprise, but Pakistan was at some point quite ahead on this matter with Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, who was a lady, but also India had a female Prime Minister with Indira Gandhi. So just to say, that's interesting to know that that countries which today are not considered role models were ahead of many others on this, and this was necessarily without minimum quotas. This was really with a culture of equality between genders, and this from childhood, from birth, etc. So just to answer your question for Peter, how does this empower women? At least it is a threshold for something else, for something bigger, provided provided we do not stay in the middle of the river, but really find a path where this situation cannot be more than a transition. And as a transition, probably better than nothing. But as a transition, how does it really empower women? I think we should ask them. They're the best positioned to tell us how this empowers them. But my understanding of the political debate is this. I hope this may answer your question and answer other possible questions on this from you, from anyone else here. Yeah. But something very interesting for her is that her thesis is raising a real interest. Most of the people she meets are really interested in what she's doing and see a major contribution to come to knowledge, of course, but also to policy. Although the concern and the purpose of this thesis are not to directly contribute to policy or to practice, but some of those MPs are really interested and think here we might then have theoretical grounds for advocacy. So please hurry, be quick before we die. So that's the interesting thing to know, that indeed there is a genuine interest. So back to how to get started. So here we start with those circles, with those notions and how they intersect. And for this, you do not need you really do not need to read a lot when you start. I know it might sound counterintuitive. I know that it would be reassuring to have a list of readings when you start. And I always discourage my students from starting to read too soon, because you must know what to read. You must know what you want to find, or not in terms of conclusions, but what type of insights you need, which your readings could bring you. And when you just start, you have no idea. And so in the very first place, that's really it. Identify the three circles. Once you identify the three circles, the three main notions and stuff, we are close to identifying the bodies of literature you should browse. And here I will say something I'm not used to saying, but very often it could be a good idea having a look at what is written in practitioners' journals, what might be written on professional social media such as LinkedIn or whatsoever, so as to identify some currency of the topic, of the questions, or some non-academic debates, so as to make sure that what you're doing academically intersects with what happens in the non-academic world. I'm not saying this often because there is always a risk when you do this, a risk of falling overly empirical, what you find on LinkedIn or wherever else is often not substantiated, but it's normal. It's not meant to be substantiated. You've got people promoting themselves, you've got strong claims, you've got strong voices. If you take someone like Gsary Vaynerchuk, so also known as Gary V, V-E-E, there are strong voices with punchlines. So their concern is not to be accurate, not to be totally fair on real life, but their concern is to buzz. And for that reason, I do not in the first place spontaneously recommend going this path. But if I were to have a second thought, I would say at least this might give you a flavor of how current, how timely what you want to do is, and what questions arise which you might need to investigate in your readings. So why not, but with moderation and with caution. Then when it comes to starting with academic readings, so when you start with your thesis, of course I was going too fast. Sorry, just going backwards a bit. So you start with the two or three circles, notions. You might go through social media, through professional practitioners' publications to help you think. No worries. But then the temptation is again to go into the literature too soon. Once you have done this, you've not started yet, so you're not ready to start, as you only have a very partial view of what you will eventually do with your thesis. What I always do with my students before they read, really before they start reading, is that I check with them based on the agreed upon topic and research question, what data they consider collecting, and what they are intending to do with their data. At least I want to make sure that all this reflection we have had on the topic, the research question, timeliness, etc., is not just conjecture, is not just abstract speculation, but is something feasible by the student. And often it happens that the student does not have a clear idea of the type of data they need, or is not really clear or sure that he or she can have access to this data. In other words, the topic, the research question are great, fantastic. We know what to do, but it is just not feasible by the student, which means if not feasible empirically by the students, there's no thesis. And a good thesis is a thesis which is written, not a thesis which is just thought or conceived of. So once you are relatively clear with those three circles that intersect on those main areas of thought, okay, what type of data do I need? So basically, and I'm sorry if I'm oversimplifying, but basically your data could be interviews, could be a survey, could be a questionnaire, could be, and I'll give you some other examples in a tip, could be anything else. Here, those other examples are, I had a student years ago. She did something great. When was this? It was nearly 15 years ago. Yeah, 15 years ago. I was in Brisbane, in Australia, and she was very interested in. She was from Sri Lanka, very important, and she was interested in the war that took place at that time, 2009. I can't remember. I do not know if you remember. In 2009, the Tamils took the power, and there was a civil war where the minority who was persecuted was the Sinhalese, and she wanted to see how. So this was a research question: how a civil war is covered by mainstream media in the world. So this was her research question. And then we identified the main areas she had to investigate. So there was something on wars and war news, or media, war and international relations. And then I can't remember how exactly we subsumed this, but this was the starting point. And then the question was, okay, what type of data do you need and how do you want to collect it? And at the beginning, that's very interesting. She said, well, I really want to interview those politicians who were involved and even some of those generals. I said to her, but first, do you really think they would talk to you? Do you really think that generals that gave the order to execute the Sinhalese will talk to you? You are Sinhalese. You are a Sri Lankan citizen. They are still there, and there is still a controversy. Do you really believe that they will tell you? I said, oh no, you're right. It would be fantastic, of course, saying, oh, I ordered a genocide. Oh, and ha 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 ha. I laughed. It was so funny. No, nobody will. So, and I said to her, but your research question is, how is a civil war covered by international mainstream media? So here I think you should probably browse those international mainstream media, and in a systematic way. And as someone does a systematic literature review, and this is something we can discuss in a later stream. As with a literature review, here you systematically browse mainstream media with your own keyword, with your own selection of media, and this will be your raw material. And then you need to analyze this textual data. Are you interested? I said, oh yes, that's even better. I said, I do not know if it is better, but at least I know it is feasible. And it might not be exactly what you wanted to do, because it will not be first-hand data, but at least there will be something. And I said, no, that's exactly it. I want to raise interest. So, okay, here we go. And then, as she knew what her data would look like, she could more easily engage with the literature and identify what to read and with what lens to read it. Another example was on a student of mine who did his dissertation on the construction of a fan market. I know it's said like this, it might sound a bit not esoteric, but a bit unclear. So the student was the CFO of a professional football soccer club in Brazil, and he wanted to see how a football club, a sports club, could build a community of fans and engage with their fans. Engage, very important. So we identified that there was a big issue with, or concern with fans, and fans more, and this could borrow from either marketing, like fans of a brand, but also fans with the culture, rock star fans of the fan base, or also from politics. So there was something to really understand the notion of fans, but also engagement. And this thesis was defended, I think, about 8 years ago or something. So I'm saying this because I'm saying this with the 7 or 8 years ago, because it may be important to understand this notion of engagement. Nowadays, with social media, engagement is key. So we always speak of engagement or associate engagement with social media and vice versa. At the time of the thesis, engagement, or the notion of engagement, was emerging with social media. I'm not saying it was not existing before, but it was not as central. At the time, what really mattered was the number of followers, of subscribers, more than engagement per se. So people were obsessed with numbers. And the student, he found that in an emergent literature that engagement was key to social media, or would become key to social media. So he said to me, if I want to deal with engagement, here I'm with, like, my football players are like rock stars. So here I want to see how the club engages with its fan base. Then I have to collect data from social media. I have to collect data showing this engagement. And then interesting as a start. And then we thought, okay, and then what is the most appropriate platform and type of social media where you can measure engagement? And he said, well, ideally Facebook. But we found at the time that it was impossible scrapping data from Facebook. Whilst there were tools enabling to scrap data from Twitter, now X. So Facebook, technically impossible. In theory or on paper, fantastic. Practically impossible. So he decided to go for Twitter, and it did something wonderful. So his data would be textual plus numerical data showing engagement, like number of likes on the posts submitted by the club, but also responses, reactions, shares, reshares, comments, replies, but also the words employed, etc. So it was very, very good. Just to say here, we needed to clarify before doing anything else what type of data would be needed, even if we did not have a 100% clear idea thereof. But at least we knew where to go. This takes me to a final point for tonight, and I will develop this probably next time, as this gives me the idea now. All those of you who have been students of mine, you will know, so you will recognize my touch with this. Now, when you get started, what I was suggested, but it was by the end of my own thesis, on the day of the Viva, where I collected my examiner from the airport. And he told me, a good thesis must be conceived of as follows from the onset. 4 questions. You must have those 4 questions in mind from the beginning. What is my knowledge claim? I'm not detailing today on purpose. What is my knowledge claim? Question number 2, what is the knowledge debate I want to address? Question 3, by which means do I want to engage in this debate? Question 4 is, what is my expected contribution? And with this, when you start with this, you can be sure that you will have a great thesis. But this is a different story. I will discuss this in a live specifically devoted to that, and probably next week. And before we all go, I have an existential question for you. I know that this time of the week, Saturday night, 8:30 p.m. Paris time, is all but ideal. So I know that for people who are on the same or on a compatible time zone to France, this means that attending or streaming or watching a live at that time means that you are depriving yourself of any social life. And I know that Saturdays are quite precious. Or for those who are on the American continent, the US or Canada, this means that it's on a Saturday early afternoon, so sort of breaking your afternoon just in the middle. For those who are in Australia or New Zealand, well, it's a bit early for a Sunday morning. So I know it's not ideal. I would like to know if you could suggest me anything. So I would like to know if you think I should continue on Saturdays at that time, or if I should try with a different day of the week. I'm more than happy to move for a different day of the week if it is convenient, more convenient for my emergent community. I do not want my streams to be a sort of a constraint or a bother or whatever, and I do not want Saturdays to be a problem. Of course, if you tell me no, Saturdays are great, you cannot find a better slot, I'm more than happy to follow this. I tried, if you remember, I'm not sure, my first stream was at 5:30 p.m. Paris time. Can't remember, I think it was on a Sunday at 5:30. And then I was suggested doing it twice, once in French, once in English, and this is how I decided to split into 2 different sessions, 2 consecutive days, and then I can't remember how I decided on this particular time slot, 8:30 p.m. Paris time. But a few friends, a few colleagues, a few people tell me that those slots are really, really problematic for them. Sunday night, impossible for many with children who have a family life. Saturday, constraining for a number of others. So I'm more than happy to have your insights, your advice on this, so I can then, if need be, test different slots that could work better. So either you can react in the chat now, or you can message me at some point. So I'm happy to know, and if I need to change my slot, to change my day, I will. Perhaps not for next time, as it may be too short notice. But if I need to change, I will do with great pleasure, of course. Okay, this works fine for you. Okay, thank you for this, Monique. Just the question is open, and if until next week you have any suggestions on this matter, please let me know, and I will be more than happy to adjust, as I do not want my streams to be a constraint. I want my streams to be a good time we all spend together. So a good time will be the best timing for you. So thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you very much for staying, for popping in. I wish you a lovely evening, a lovely rest of the afternoon in the US, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. So thank you for what Peter said. It's meant to be interactive, so I'm happy it starts being interactive. So it's meant to be, and I really hope it will continue. So see you soon, and all the best until next time. Bye to all.